I would like to give floor to our first guest, Chuck. Here, and Chuck actually has his heart into countries in the United States, where he worked for more than 20 years developing community-based organizations, doing organizing, residential repairs, and direct services to people in Ohio and Kentucky, and also in Slovakia, where from 1996 to the present, he has been based in Banska Bystrica in Slovakia, building local and international organizations. And he helped to establish the Center for Community Organizing in Banska Bystrica and Central and Eastern European Citizens Network, and also ECON. And currently he serves as president of the CKO board and chairperson of the ECON fundraising committee. And Chuck will tell us a few words about why local fundraising is actually relevant, important, and in many cases successful. So the floor is yours, Chuck.
Too much. Thank you very much. Well, the context, as Iwona asked me to introduce, was the issue about how fundraising fits into all of this. And in the very early days in 2008, when people were gathering to form this entity that we call ECON, one of the major issues that we faced, and one part of the reason for forming ECON, was that there was a recognition that we needed to do something to find financial resources. We wanted to support organizing through training and mentoring, but one of the other really important issues was the issue of fundraising, that it was one of the major problems that we all faced about how to sustain the fundraising for this kind of work. And a series of things were done over some time. The other related issue that was a part of this was that as we brought these groups together, there were two critical issues that we identified over time that were a big part of the limitations of the work that we were doing. One was that there was a struggle to build large, powerful organizations. We tend to build these smaller organizations with limited membership. And the question was, how could we increase our capacity to build our power? But the second one was this issue about raising money, and particularly the issue, there has been a great resistance in the Central and Eastern European region to raising money. We can't do this, people are poor, we don't really have experience. You do that in the United States, but we don't do that here. So we tried a number of things, had several issues of focus around that, but I think it was 3 years ago when we had the ECON annual meeting in Slovakia, in Banska Bystrica, and Dave Beckwith joined us for that. Dave challenged ECON to consider a campaign to start really raising serious money for organizing. And we talked about it and agreed that we really liked the idea. We appreciated the agitation, and we said, yeah, let's do this. And so we revitalized the fundraising committee. And as we met and started working, we've had three basic parts to the work that we're doing with the fundraising. The one was to pick up on the challenge that Dave had left with us about trying to get bigger donors involved and aware of the importance of community organizing and an interest to consider funding that. And off of that has been a series of two or three, Steve, donor forums that we've had?
2 so far, with a third one in the works for October.
In 3 weeks, right? Yeah. And not only have we had the donor forum, but we've done some significant reaching out to a number of donors that put it in contact with some other, and it's already led to several groups that we didn't even really know about who are now actually supporting the work of organizing, which has been pretty important. There's much more to be done about that, but I think we're feeling some interesting momentum and some success with that. The second, which has actually been a part of our history, was that we have been conducting an annual campaign to raise money to support this. And with both friends of ECON based in the United States, which Dave and other of our friends have been very helpful with, we've been raising money annually for the work that ECON and its members are trying to take on. And then the third aspect of our work that we added was this issue about sustainable grassroots fundraising, that we wanted to see if we couldn't find some ways to encourage and support more sustainable grassroots fundraising. So as we proceeded with those three tasks, there was some agreement that the committee put forward to the board, and the board accepted it, that we would raise money in our annual campaign 2 years ago to support a re-granting effort, with the idea that we would try to encourage groups to go out and raise money. We would offer them $200 if they would raise at least that locally. And we're going to hear some stories of that today. So we raised $2,000 in our annual campaign, and we launched this re-granting program, and we had actually 11 groups. We were planning on funding 10, but when we got 11 requests and we felt like they were all worthy, we decided to fund all of them. And it seems that nearly all of them were launched and successful and have made some difference. And so the committee, as we talked about it, agreed that one of the things we thought would be helpful is if we could capture these stories and so that people could learn and see what these experiences were. Dave had put us in touch with a program of the Clinton School where Drew is a student. And so we put in an application, said we wanted to have somebody do this work. Drew applied, and along with a couple of others, and we agreed with Drew that he would go ahead and do this. And he's done a wonderful job and is going to introduce that report to you next. So we're kind of amplifying this story, and we're not sure what the next steps are. We want to continue to be able to do this. We need to raise some more money to continue to incentivize this. So we're continuing work on all three of those fronts, and I think it's really critical kind of work to support the work of building community organizing in Europe. In Slovakia, we had a couple of stories that are documented in Drew's issue. I would encourage you to read them. The first one inspired by Joan's training over 20 years ago here, when we went out into a neighborhood and started knocking on doors, and the organizer there followed that up for 6 years and actually raised money every year by knocking on doors and building their organization. And it's a documented, remarkable achievement that we've done. Unfortunately, never been picked up by anybody else, but we've demonstrated that it's possible to do here. And the other story is the work that Sonia Nikolov has done in the Zvolin neighborhood every year, raising money for a neighborhood day and other things, but it's included in Drew's report. So we've got stories, and I'm delighted that we're doing this today. I'm really pleased with the work that Drew did about this to document this. And we're going to continue working to build this critical part of the work of ECON. So.
Thank you, Chuck. So actually, you already mentioned Drew, who will be our next speaker. And I know that a great majority of you know Drew already, but I'm not sure if you, Peter, you also know him, but just because I introduced Chuck, and I will do the same with the other guests, I want to say a few words about Drew. So Drew is currently the Economic Resiliency Coordinator at the West Central Arkansas Planning and Development Commission. Along with this, he's a second-year student at the Clinton School of Public Service in the Masters of Public Service degree program. And Drew has completed work with the Cooperative Extension Services and Agriculture and Community Resource Center in Arkansas, as well as with the ECON, where he spent his summer traineeship on digging into local fundraising, and I would like you, Drew, to say a few words actually about the effect of your work, about the study.
Sure, thank you, Rwanda, and I also want to thank ECON for having me again to speak. I feel like I've taken a lot of time away from Ildiko and Chuck, but I think what we've done here is really valuable for the whole community and network. So in thinking about what I was going to say today, I was thinking about the actual value of what we've done and how we've approached it. So I think Chuck mentioned it slightly, but with this report, we really wanted to chronicle the physical, actual stories of what people were doing, the actionable things that happened. So with that, you get a lot of value out of that. So you hear the personal experiences of organizers, you see exactly what went right, exactly what went wrong. You get a lot of really good information just out of stories that don't necessarily even need explanations past them. So I think there's a lot of value in our report in that sense. And Gabriela and Luca will be able to speak more on this later. But I think what we're seeing is this broader effort by Europeans and by United States organizers as well to implement grassroots fundraising strategies in unique and creative ways in their own communities. And I think chronicling that is of the highest importance because it gives, again, people advice, it gives people plans on their own ideas, it gives people sort of ways to modify these stories into their own communities. And it also, a more kind of metaphysical point, it shows people that these strategies can work. It provides evidence for a broader theme that grassroots fundraising can be sustainable, it can be beneficial, it can be worthwhile efforts. You know, I think there's a lot of value in this report, and I'm very happy to speak further on this as well. So I think whenever I was first agreeing to do the project itself, we conceptualized it in a way before coronavirus that I would be traveling to every country, visiting organizations, visiting people in person, seeing the actual context of people's actions and what organizations were doing. But however, as you all are aware, this thing called the coronavirus happened, and it's still happening here in the US, but that obviously threw a cog in the proverbial wheel. So we were able to modify it to this program now where I interview people over Zoom and was able to collect reports that way. So I feel that, you know, we made the best out of a really poor situation. And I think the fact that we were able to do this in any sense is an accomplishment in itself, notwithstanding all the actual benefits of the report. So I'll stop myself there and we can continue.
Okay, thank you, Drew. Actually, I had a chance to read the whole broad report, and it will be. Yeah, I was one of the lucky ones, and actually, it will be published soon on the ECON website. So. Yeah, let's make this this output visible to the others and show that actually local fundraising sometimes is difficult, but it works in many cases. Yeah, and actually, Drew had the occasion, as you mentioned, to talk to leaders and community organizers who used local fundraising to support their activities. And actually, one of them was Gabriela Anghel, who is with us today. And Gabriela is a community organizing enthusiast. She volunteers for a civic grassroots initiative called, excuse me for my pronunciation, I don't know how to pronounce it, Floreska Civica, which which she started in 2015, and the group is working to preserve the plots of green spaces between old buildings and the parks in the neighborhood against the public institutions, which actually allowed to real estate developments presence on the spot. And Gabriela, she's also working for a non-profit organization in Bucharest, helping more than 3,000 Romanian non-profits to access tech tools. And Gabriela will describe impressive crowdfunding campaign around apartment developments conducted by Floresca Civica.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ivona, for the introduction. If you allow me, I will start sharing my screen because I've prepared something.
So just give us 1 second, Asha, she has the power to do that.
Okay. Give me a little of your powers. Because I prepare a presentation, it's mainly composed by photos. But sometimes photos, images. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So I will jump directly into the subject because I'm very enthusiastic and about community organizing, and I will complete the presentation that Ivona made to our group, Floresca Civica, adding only the fact that we are trying to preserve the Floresca neighborhood identity as a small, green and quiet area in Bucharest. And also we are trying to find solutions to improve the quality of life, not only in our neighborhood, but around the city. The project, our main project in the last couple of years, Salvați Hala Ford, which in English will be Save Ford Factory, which is my subject of the presentation today. Yes, it's about the old building of the first Ford Motors Company factory in the Eastern Europe. So this project was almost a desperate fight of ours against a private company in Bucharest who managed to build skyscrapers in the heart of our neighborhood. And we are talking, and please see the pictures for a better understanding of the situation. We are talking about 4 buildings of 30, 40 floors in an area where you can find only 5 buildings with 10 floors and a lot of buildings with only 3 floors. So after 2 years of civic activism and classic community organizing actions, we had no other choice for blocking the construction that to switch to the legal approach, and that's how fundraising idea arose in our group, and its goal was to raise the money that we needed to pay for the legal expenses and to pay the lawyer. But after a while, after we sat around the table and thought and reflected on risk, on advantages or disadvantages of our legal actions, we understood that fundraising had many other goals, that fundraising was a positive project for us because it helped us to raise awareness in our community. It helped us to inform community about what was happening with the construction site. It helped us to attract and welcome new volunteers in our group, and also help us to empower simple citizens to take action when something was wrong in on their streets, in their communities. So in the last couple of years, Floresca Civica organized 3 crowdfunding campaigns. We had a permanent offline campaign, basically when we organized community meetings to inform the community about the legal status, about the statuses of the legal actions. We used the opportunity to raise money from the members of our community directly during these meetings. And in 2018 and then in 2019, we organized 2 online campaigns for fundraising using an online platform called Sprijină.ro, which will be help or support.ro. The first campaign was called Opriți distrugerea cartierului Floreasca. Translated in English will be Stop the Destructions of Floreasca Neighborhood. And the second online campaign, Stop Șantier în Cartier, which in English will be Stop Construction Site in the Neighborhood, but with less rhyme than in Romanian. And these online campaigns were both successfully because we managed to raise all the money that we've planned. But of course, soon we found out that the legal expenses were so much higher that we anticipated. But you know, sometimes you just cannot stop in the middle of the road. So we carried on. And the lesson, and we learn now the lesson that we had to learn from this project and from these campaigns. We've lost it. We've lost the causes in court, although the violation of law was clear. But this is another story for another time. And even so, Floreasca Civică still enjoys the support and the trust from the members of our communities. If you look at that picture, they are still very responsive when we organize actions in our neighborhood. And people in our community are more engaged and more aware of what's happening on their streets and about the public agenda of the city hall. And last but not least, we as a group, we are stronger than before, and we have more faith in our work, because when people donated money to us to pay the legal expenses, they also validated our project, our vision, or our approach for the neighborhood in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabriela, for this impressive campaign. And even though the result wasn't the one that you expected, but still it had many benefits, as we heard. And actually, the very last speaker of our webinar is Luca. Oh my goodness, Ciubotaru. Okay, also from Romania. And Luca works for more than 10 years in the young sector in Romania, and he's the founding president of the association Civigradotti, founded in 2017. Later on, Luca, you will tell how to say it correctly. And the aim of the organization is to promote active citizenship and good governance at the local level in the small community of Radotti, Romania, and to foster civic participation in the nearby rural areas. And one of the most recent projects that Luca was involved in was the COVID Relief Fund for his local community, which turned to be not only successful, but also the biggest crowdfunding campaign ever done in his home city. And Luca will tell us about that successful story. So the floor is yours, Luca.
Well, thank you so much, Ivona. It's a really pleasure to be here and to hear all these stories. Well, our story with the COVID Relief Fund actually somehow was built on an effort that is actually going on since 2017, because that was the moment when we gathered and we said we have to do something for our community, and let's just use the resources we have as citizens, and let's just build the power with, and then try to build the power over the authorities when you interact with them. So actually, during our first project was to organize a summer camp for some children in the social services of the government, and we tried to access some local funds. We were rejected, and then we built a whole narrative on this rejection, because we were rejected in a abusive way. We built a whole narrative, and there were people, even like seniors, who donated for an NGO, for a nonprofit in our small town for the first time in their life, because the image of the nonprofit sector was so bad there. So they were just not aware about the power of the organized civil society. And this is what we did in the last 2 years. Somehow we raised awareness on what can we do as simple citizens for our communities, either being that we talk about, educational summer camp, or I don't know, greening some areas, or raising issues when you see illegal buildings in the town center and so on. During the COVID times, there was a very, very strong story of now, because usually when you do community organizing, you start by, presenting the story of self, of us, and at the end you go to action. But Heroes was vice versa, because there was a strong sense of urgency in all the communities. All the people felt the need to act, but there was no glue for them to come together, and we acted as a glue for our community. We just set these initiatives, we communicated our goals as helping in the first place the local hospital, and then this whole campaign actually exceeded so much our expectations that we were able to help the whole ecosystem, meaning family doctors, everything, ambulances and emergency systems. And we also set a new record for the crowdfunding and grassroots fundraising in our community, being able to raise 32,000 euros in about 2 or 3 weeks. The biggest, this is somehow the biggest local crowdfunding campaign we knew in our city. And somehow when people, I don't know, decide to fund a civic initiative, they don't only give you, I don't know, $1, they also give you trust, and you're responsible of setting a path for that dollar to go as far as possible. And this is somehow a thing that we really took serious. And at the same time, one of the lessons learned was that beyond gathering funds for the hospital and making tens of donations and so on, this kind of initiatives build solidarity in our group. And how many euros? It was 32,000. Yeah, 32. Yes, 32,000 euro. So beyond all these short-term goals, the biggest win for our community is that people came together, and maybe for the first time they saw how they can work together. And from all, we started with I don't know, 5 or 6 volunteers from our nonprofit, and then we reach out at the end of the campaign to have a group of 80 people who are actively involving, and most of these 80 people now are volunteers of this civic group, and we're starting brainstorming on future projects and so on. So yeah, in this case there are emotions that triggered the need to act. As anger, for example, triggered the need to do something in the first case when people were angry on the local administration because they did not fund in an abusive way our summer camp for those children. So there are many factors that can bring people together, but in our case, somehow I can say this is like the good part of COVID, because it brought people together. And now we discovered that we have so many resources in that community, and we can all use them. And if I can just share screen before ending my presentation, I just wanted to show you a few pictures. If Asia will give me the right to do that. All right, just 1 second. Just to see the joy of some volunteers who did this for the very first time. Where is it? All right. Yeah, so we also had two projects where we created 8 packages for hundreds of families. This was like things were going on, and this was a sport room from one of our schools. This is another project we ended, and these were some. We managed to triple the number of oxygen concentrators from our local hospital. Yeah, this was the pure joy, and this was one of the local sports team that actually decided to auction their T-shirts for fundraising for our local campaign. So thank you so much, and once again for this opportunity of sharing this story.
Yeah, thank you, Luca, and congratulations to you and Gabriela on the results of your campaign and for your group. All right, so actually we came to the end of the first part of the webinar. Thank you again for very interesting presentations and thoughts about local fundraising. And now I'm going to give the floor to Asia, who will carry out the second part of the webinar.